Hi everyone and welcome to part 4 of my ISC2 CC video series. In this video series, we are diving deep into the Certified in Cybersecurity Exam Preparation, breaking down the key concepts and providing in-depth explanation of the question and answers. This is the fourth video in this series and we will be tackling about 50 questions in this video. So grab your notes and let's break down these questions to help you on your CC certification journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more content like this. So gear up and let's dive into the success. Question number 146. What does the term LAN, that is local area network, refer to? Option A tool to manage and control network traffic as well as to protect a network. Option B, a network on a building or limited geographical area. Option C, a device that connects multiple other devices in a network. And option D, a long distance connection between geographically distant networks. And the correct option is option B, a network on a building or limited geographical area. So LAN is, how does LAN work? LAN basically consists of a network switch and the devices connected to this network such as laptops, maybe PCs, printers, and other devices such as server. And these are all connected through local area network, and this cable is Cat 6, Cat 7 or Cat 5 cable. You must have heard of it. And this LAN is basically limited within a building or a small geographical area. And because the maximum distance of this Cat 6 is 100 meters. So this cable can, the distance between this switchboard and this device can be up to 100 meters. That's why the answer is that it is a network that is limited to a building or limited geographical area. You can say roughly that within 100-meter radius. So a LAN or local area network is a network that spans a small limited geographical area such as a building, office or campus. It is used to connect devices within close proximity for sharing resources like printer, files or internet access. Question number 147. Which of these is a type of corrective security controls? Option A, patches. Option B, intrusion detection systems. Option C, guidelines. And option D, encryption. And the correct option is option A, patches. So patches is basically a corrective security control. So what is a corrective security control? Corrective security control is that is used to correct or mediate a vulnerability or a security, you can say a security weakness, such as if there is a vulnerability inside a system such as a Windows operating system and Microsoft releases a patch, then through this patch you have corrected this specific vulnerability. So that's why this is known as the corrective security control. So corrective security controls are implemented to fix vulnerabilities or mitigate the impact of a security incident after it has occurred. So it is corrective in nature because it acts after the vulnerability or the incident has occurred. Patches are a classic example of corrective control because they are designed to address and rectify vulnerabilities in the software or systems, thereby preventing the same issue from causing harm in the future. Question number 148. Which of these enables point-to-point online communication over an untrusted network? What is an untrusted network? Untrusted network is basically a public network that is not your own and you are not sure that your traffic will be secured. So the options are option A, VLAN, option B, firewall, option C, router, and option D, VPN. And the correct option is VPN, virtual private network. So basically VPN is used or a public network such as the internet. Let's suppose there is a company, it's in one city, let's suppose New York, and there is an employee inside another country, let's suppose it is inside England. So the only way that they can communicate is through the internet. And since internet is public, this traffic can be viewed by the internet service providers and many other intermediaries. The only way to protect and secure this communication is through the virtual private network. So when you configure a VPN between these two locations, then the traffic is basically encrypted and it flows through a virtual tunnel, and all the traffic inside this tunnel is encrypted, and even if it is intercepted by the intermediate ISPs, they cannot make sense of it because it is gibberish and encrypted. A virtual private network enables secure point-to-point communication over an untrusted network such as the internet. It uses encryption and tunneling protocols to protect data during transmission, ensuring privacy and security. This allows users to connect securely to a remote network or device as if they were on the same local network. Question number 149, at which of the OSI layer do TCP and UDP work? So TCP UDP are two protocols. So which OSI layer do they work on? Remember, we have 7 layers in OSI. Here we are given 4 layers. Option A, transport. Option B, session. Option C, application. Option D, physical layer. So this is basically a networking question, and the correct option is option A, transport layer. So the most popular protocols on the transport layers are TCP and UDP. TCP is a reliable protocol that works on a three-way handshake. It means that a connection is established using three-way handshake between the client and the server before the data transmission takes place, while UDP is a non-reliable protocol where no prior connection or three-way handshake takes place, and the data is sent as fast as it can be so that the data is received in real time. So this protocol is basically useful for real-time applications such as the audio call. So in audio call, you cannot wait or you cannot delay the packets because the conversation between two persons should be in real time and fast. So the TCP, transmission control protocol, and UDP, user datagram protocol, operate at transport layer of the OSI model. This layer is responsible for end-to-end communication, providing mechanisms like error detection, flow control, and segmentation of data. TCP is connection-oriented, ensuring reliable data delivery, while UDP is connectionless and faster but does not guarantee delivery. Question number 150, which is the primary focus of the ISO 27002 standard? Option A, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, that is HIPAA. Option B, Information Security Management System, that is ISMS. Option C, Risk Management. And option D, Application Security. And the correct option is option B, Information Security Management System, ISMS. So the ISO 27002 standard provides guidelines and best practices for implementing and maintaining an information security management system. It focuses on information security controls to manage risk effectively and ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. It complements ISO 27001, which specifies the requirements for establishing an ISMS. Question number 151. Which of these different submasks will allow 30 hosts? So we have different subnet masks. Which of these will allocate or allow accommodation of about 30 hosts? We are talking about 30 IP addresses. And the options are option A /26, option B /30, option C /27, and option D /29. And the correct option is option C /27. So the formula to identify or determine the number of hosts or IP addresses is basically 2 to the power n minus 2. So what is n? N is basically 32. 32 is the total bits inside an IP addresses. So this can range up to 32 minus this figure, this /30 or /26. So here we are talking about, let's suppose, 27, and it is equal to 5. So the number of IP addresses is equal to 2 to the power 5 minus 2. It is equal to 32 minus 2 and 30. Similarly, if we equate it for let's suppose 26, then for 26, n is equal to 32 minus 26, which is equal to 6. And in this way, number of IP addresses are 2 to the power 6 minus 2, and 2 to the power 6 is 64 minus 2 is equal to 62. So these addresses are much more than the required 30. And similarly for this, the n will be basically 32 minus 29, 3. So 2 to the power 3 minus 2, 2 to the power 3 is equal to 8. So 8 minus 2 is equal to 6, which is very less. So that's how you calculate the number of IP addresses. If you remember this formula and this method, your life will be very easy if you are in practical field such as networking or even the cybersecurity. And this is the explanation. So if subnet mask of /27 allows for 32 total IP addresses, of which 30 can be assigned. So why we minus this 2? Because one IP address, the first IP address, is reserved for the network, and the last IP address is for the broadcast. So these two IP addresses cannot be used for the host, of which 30 can be assigned to host, excluding one for the network address and one for the broadcast. Here is the breakdown for the given options. /26 provides 64 total addresses with 62 usable for host. /30 provides 4 total addresses with only 2 usable for host. /27 provides 32 total addresses with 30 usable for host, and /29 provides 8 total addresses with 6 usable for host. Therefore, /27 is the correct subnet for 30 hosts. Question 152. Which of these statements about the security implications of IP version 6 is not true? And the options are option A, rules based on static IPv6 addresses may not work. Option B, IPv6 net implementation is insecure. Option C, IPv6 traffic may bypass existing security controls. And option D, IPv6 reputation services may not be mature and useful. And the correct option is option B, IPv6 net implementation is insecure. And why is that? So the explanation is that IPv6 does not include network address translation. So this network address translation, it is available in IPv4, but it is not available in IPv6. Why? Because many IP addresses are available in IPv6. We have a lot of IP addresses in billions. So as a result, there is no net implementation, and so IPv6 cannot actually have an insecure version. Rules based on static IPv6 addresses may not work since IPv6 addresses are often dynamically assigned. Thus, certain security controls that rely on static address rules such as firewalls or access controls may not work in all cases. Reputation services are still relatively rare and also somewhat less useful for IPv6 traffic. Finally, an organization needs to configure its security control to handle IPv6 traffic adequately. Otherwise, IPv6 traffic may bypass many existing IPv4 security tools. Question number 153. Which of these is a type of detective access control? And the options are option A, bollards, option B, movement sensors, option C, turnstiles, and option D, firewalls. And the correct option is, so we are talking about detection. So bollards, they basically prevent, they do not detect, they prevent vehicles from entering a facility such as a convenience store on the main road. Similarly, turnstile for regulating the entrance of individuals inside a facility. Again, firewall is also a preventive control for preventing the unauthorized traffic entering the network. So the only remaining correct option is movement, since movement sensor detect the movement of anything inside a described area. So detective control alert us to security problems by constantly monitoring activity and recording information so as to take immediate action in the event of a security control failure, such as bollards or turnstiles. Therefore, a movement sensor is considered a detective control and is complementary to physical control. Firewalls are network devices used to filter network traffic and are thus considered technical controls. Question number 154. The name, age, and location and job title of a person are examples of option A, biometric factors, option B, attributes, and option C, account permissions, and option D, identity factors. And the correct option is option B, attributes. So attributes such as a person's name, age, location, job title, and even characteristics such as height or hair color may all be associated with their identity. None of these described biometric factors used for authentication. Identity factors are something you know or have. This means that identity factors are something you know, something you are, or something you have. Account permissions determine what an authenticated person such as a user can do and not attributes related to user's identity. Question number 155. Which cloud service model provides the most suitable environment for customers who want to install their custom operating systems? So, we need a cloud model where users have the flexibility of installing their own operating system. So, what is the suitable cloud model? Option A, SaaS, software as a service. Option B, SLA. Option C, infrastructure as a service. And option D, platform as a service, PaaS. And the correct option is infrastructure as a service, since in infrastructure as a service, you have the control over the VMs and you can install your own operating system. So infrastructure as a service is a cloud service model that allows the customer to manage the computing resources, including the operating system. Software as a service is a model that provides customer with access to software applications, typically on a subscription-based or pay-per-use model, but does not allow them to access the underlying infrastructure. Platform as a service is a service model that provides a platform for building, deploying, and managing applications. However, like SaaS, it does not offer the ability to access the underlying infrastructure, including the operating system. An SLA is simply a service level agreement and not a cloud service deployment model. Question number 156. Which of these statements is true about cyber squatting? Option A, it's an unethical practice, but everyone does it. Option B, it is partially legal practice. Option C, it is an illegal practice. And option D, it is a legal practice. And the correct option is option C. So cyber squatting is basically an illegal practice. Cyber squatting, also known as domain squatting, is the practice of speculatively registering and then selling, typically at a high price, a domain name with the intent of profiting for someone else's trademark. An example would be someone registering the domain name mycompany.com and then offering to sell it to the owner of the trademark mycompany for a higher price. Cybersquatting can cause confusion and damage to the trademark owner's brand, which is generally considered unethical and deceptive. Indeed, cybersquatting is an illegal practice under the United States Anti-Cybersquatting Consumer Protection Act, as well as under similar laws in other countries. Question number 157. Which of these addresses is commonly reserved specifically for broadcasting? We are talking about the broadcast address, which is, remember, the last address inside a subnet or inside a network. And the options are option A 192.299.121.254, option B 192.299.121.0, option C 192.299.121.14, and option D 192.299.121.255. So since we talked about the last address, and if we see in this these options, this seems to be the last address, since the 255 is the last digit inside each of these octet. This is the first one, so this is basically a network address, and this is a broadcast address. So IPv4 addresses are 32 bits representing as a sequence of 4 8-bit integers separated by a dot. Addresses ending with 0, such as this one, are reserved for specifically signify the network itself and not a specific device on that network. In contrast, addresses ending in 255 are generally reserved for broadcasting to all devices on that network. Question number 158. Which department is in a company is not typically involved in a disaster recovery plan, that is DRP? Option A, executive. Option B, financial. Option C, public relations. And option D, IT. And the correct option is option B, financial. So executives and public relations staff need to be aware of the company's disaster recovery plan to properly handle the expectations of the public as well as of company stakeholders. IT personnel should be focused on helping businesses return to normal operations. A company's financial department is rarely involved in a disaster recovery plan, except when the issue at hand is directly connected to company finances. Question number 159. Which of these pairs does not constitute multi-factor authentication? What is multi-factor authentication? Where we have multi-factor, more than one factor for authenticating into a system. And the options are option A, fingerprint and password. Option B, username and retainer. Option C, password and username. And option D, PIN and credit card. And the correct option is option C, password and username, because they are the same. They can be known as one factor because they both belong to the type of authentication factor known as something you know. While this option A, if you look at this, it has two factors. One is password is something you know, and fingerprint is basically something you are. So basically there are three type of authentication factors: something you know, something you are, and something you have. This is basically something you have. Credit card is something you have, plus PIN is, again you can say, something you know. So when you have two different types of authentication factors, two or more than two, then you can truly call it a multi-factor authentication. But if they belong to the same type, that is something you know, then this cannot be called as multi-factor. A multi-factor authentication uses authentication from more than one factor. Password and username are not multi-factor since they both are something you know. Question number 160, which method is commonly used to map live host in the network? Option A, geolocation. Option B, traceroute. Option C, ping sweep. And option D, wireshark. And the correct option is option C, ping sweep. So a ping sweep is basically a commonly used method to map live host in a network. A ping sweep involves sending series of ping messages, that is ICMP echo request packets, to a range of IP addresses on a network so as to determine which hosts are currently online. Hosts that are online will respond with a reply message when a ping is sent to them. Collecting the replies makes it possible to map which hosts are currently online on the network. Question number 161. A poster reminding the best password management practice is an example of which type of learning activity? Option A, awareness. Option B, schooling. Option C, education. And option D, training. And the correct option is option A, awareness. So an awareness poster or campaign can be effective in engaging a user's attention and encouraging them to consider their password practices. Specific strategies including highlighting the risk associated with weak or easily guessable passwords, such as the risk of account compromise or data theft, and encouraging users to remember to use a password manager to store and manage their passwords securely. The primary goal of education is to help learners improve both their understanding of concepts and their ability to relate to them. Education about password management may involve learning how to create and manage passwords effectively. Similarly, training focuses on building proficiency in a set of skills. Methods such as lectures, workshops, and online courses can be considered training. Schooling is the process of teaching in a school, which may or may not include posters. Question number 162. Which part of the CIA triad, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability triad, will be primarily jeopardized in distributed denial of service attack? So CIA triad is basically confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Through DDoS attack, which one is compromised? And the options are option A, accountability, option B, availability, option C, integrity, and option D, confidentiality. So accountability is not inside the triad, so this is out of question. So in this denial of service, the services are basically unavailable to the intended user. So the correct option is therefore the availability. So the availability part of the CIA triad is compromised through the DOS or DDoS attacks. So disability denial of service attacks are malicious attempts to block businesses from their traffic by flooding a target server or service or network with malicious coordinated traffic generated by a wide number of systems on the internet. The goal of DDoS attack is to compromise availability. A DDoS attack does not target confidentiality, but it may accidentally compromise integrity. Accountability is the property that actions of an entity can be traced uniquely to that entity and is not directly threatened by distributed denial of service attacks. Question number 163. What technology is most likely to conserve the storage space required for video recording? And the options are option A, motion detection, option B, PTZ, option C, facial recognition, and option D, infrared camera. And the correct option is motion detection. So what does this mean? That in video recording, if you continuously record the video, then it takes a lot of space and storage. But if you configure the camera to only record when there is a motion or there is something going on, then the recording takes place. Then this using this technology of the motion detection, very less space is consumed because the camera records only when there is movement detection. The motion detection cameras record only when motion is detected and thus help in reducing video storage requirements. A recording will occur more rarely in low occupancy places like data centers, thus conserving storage in more heavily used areas. The impact on total storage space used will be negligible. Infrared cameras, facial recognition, and the ability to pan, tilt, and zoom, that is PTZ, a camera, are important features, but more is needed to conserve storage space. Question number 164. An organization that uses a layered approach when designing its security architecture is using which of these security approaches? Option A, zero trust. Option B, defense in depth. Option C, network layers. And option D, network control access. And the correct option is option B, defense in depth. So an organization that uses a layered approach when designing its security architecture is using a defense in-depth approach. In a defense in-depth approach, different layers of security controls may be implemented at different levels of the organization, such as at the network, application, and user level. Network control access refers to the process of controlling access to a network. Network layers refer to the different levels of a computer network, such as the network infrastructure, network application, and network devices. Zero trust is a security strategy which assumes that all network traffic is potentially malicious and requires verification. Question number 165. Which of these techniques will ensure the property of non-repudiation? What does non-repudiation mean? Non-repudiation means that when a sender sends a message or do something, he or she cannot later deny having done that specific action. So which property will ensure non-repudiation? Option A, using a VPN. Option B, password. Option C, encryption. And option D, digital signatures. And the correct option is option D, digital signatures. So non-repudiation means ensuring that the sender cannot later deny having sent the message. Digital signature provide an undeniable match between sender and digital signature. We can think of digital signature as a message digest encrypted with an asymmetric key. First, the message hash is encrypted using the sender's private key. Then the message possibly encrypted previously encrypted message hash Finally, the recipient decrypts the signature with the sender's public key and transfers the decrypted content to the same cryptographic hash. Non-repudiation is guaranteed because if the output of the hash matches the decrypted hash, then the recipient knows that the message is not forged and that no one else but the sender could have created that signature and sent that message. Question number 166. A USB pen with data passed around the office is an example of option A, data in motion, option B, data at rest, option C, data in transit, and option D, data in use. And the correct option is data at rest. So this question is tricky. When the data is stored on the USB or any other storage device, then this is data at rest. Data is motion is when the data is actively moving inside a network from one device to the other, not on the USB pen. Data in motion and transit are one and the same thing. Data in use is when data is actually processed by the application, and such as when you use the data inside an application such as Microsoft Word, and in this time the data may be inside the RAM of the device. Data at rest is stored data that resides on hard drives, on tapes, in the cloud, or on other storage media, like in this case a USB pen. Data in processing, also called data in use, is actively used by a computer system. Data sent over a network is called data in motion. Data in transit is a term that does not actually apply to such a situation. Question number 167. Suppose that an organization wants to implement measures to strengthen its detective access controls. Which one of these tools should they implement? Option A, patches, option B, encryption, option C, IDS, and option D, backups. So we are talking about detective access controls. So as we already studied, patches are corrective. It is basically a corrective control because it is applied after the fact, after a vulnerability is discovered. Encryption is, you can say, a preventive to prevent unauthorized access to data. IDS, as D stands for detection, intrusion detection system, we can say that this one is a detective access control. Backup is also, you can say, a preventive access control. So the correct option here is the IDS, or intrusion detection system. Detective control are crucial component of a cybersecurity program since they provide visibility into malicious activity, breaches, and attacks on an organization's IT environment. An intrusion detection system is a device or software application which monitors a network or system for malicious activity or policy violation, meaning that it's a detective control as shown here in this guide. Patches are corrective control, backups are compensating control since they provide redundancy for the information in a given system. Question number 168. Which of these is an example of a MAC address, media access control address? And the correct option is, so these are basically hexadecimal number, and MAC address is actually 48 bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and each of these is 4 bit. So this means that these are 8 bit. So 6 into 8 is 48. So this is basically a MAC address. This is an IP address. This is something else. This is, I think, IPv6. This is IPv6 and this is IPv4. So all network devices have a 48-bit media access control or MAC address represented as 6 groups of 8 bits value in hexadecimal. An example of a MAC address would be this one. since these are hexadecimal and these are 8 bits in 6 groups. Question number 169. Which of these types of credential is not used in multi-factor authentication? We already studied multi-factor authentication and authentication factors, and these are something you have, something you know, something you are, something you trust. So these three are basically the authentication factors. These three types are authentication factors. This one is not. So the correct option is option D. So I have already gone through these authentication factor. You can pause the video and read the explanation if you like. I will go and move forward to the next question. Question number 170. On an incident response team, which role acts as the team's main link to senior management? Option A, information security. Option B, communication and public relations. Option C, management. And option D, technical expert. And the correct option is the management is basically the team's link to the senior management. So on most incident response teams, members of management or organization leadership act as a primary conduit to senior management. The management team member also ensures that difficult or urgent decisions can be made without escalating authority. Communications and public relations staff focus on internal and external communications that typically differ from the direct conduit to senior management. Technical and information security experts are primarily concerned with undertaking incident response work. Question number 171. Which of these is not an effective way to protect an organization from cyber criminals? Option A, removing or disabling unneeded services and protocols. Option B, using firewalls. Option C, using outdated anti-malware software. Option D, using intrusion detection and prevention system. And the correct option is option C, using outdated anti-malware software. So using outdated anti-malware software is ineffective because it lacks the latest threat definitions and security updates, leaving the organization vulnerable to new and evolving cyber threats. Effective protection requires regularly updating security tools to detect and respond to current threats. In contrast, removing unneeded services, using firewalls, and intrusion detection and prevention systems are proactive measures to enhance cybersecurity and reduce vulnerability. Question number 172. Which of these cannot be a corrective security control? Option A, disaster recovery plan. Option B, backups. Option C, patches. And option D, bollards. And the correct option is bollard, since bollard is a physical preventive control. So bollards are physical barriers designed to prevent vehicle access and protect infrastructure from collisions. They are a physical security control, not a corrective security control. Corrective security controls such as disaster recovery plans, backups, and patches are implemented to mitigate the effects of security incidents, restore systems, and address vulnerabilities after an event has occurred. Question number 173. Which of these is included in an SLA, that is Service Level Agreement document? Option A, instructions on data ownership and destruction. Option B, instructions to detect, respond to, and limit the consequences of a cyber attack. Option C, a plan to keep business operations going while recovering from a significant disruption. And option D, a plan to prepare the organization for the continuation of critical business functions. And the correct option is option A, instructions on data ownership and destruction. So a service level agreement is a contract between a service provider and a customer that defines the level of service expected It often includes instructions on data ownership, handling, and destruction, as these are critical to outlining responsibilities and obligations. The other options refer to different documents. Option B relates to an incident response plan. Option C refers to disaster recovery plan, and option D is a part of business continuity plan. Question number 174, which port number corresponds to the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol or SMTP? And the options are option A 161, option B 69, option C 75, 25, and option D 22. And the correct option is, so the SMTP or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol works on port 25, while the 161 is used for SNMP, that is Simple Network Management Protocol. Port 69 is for TFTP, that is Trivial File Transfer Protocol, and port 22 is for SSH, that is Secure Shell. Question number 175, which type of attack attempts to mislead user into exposing personal information by sending fraudulent emails? So this is one of the most prevalent and popular attack. And the options are option A cross-site scripting, option B denial of service, option C Trojan, and option D phishing. And the correct option is option D phishing. So phishing is a type of social engineering attack where cyber criminals send fraudulent emails designed to appear legitimate. These emails aim to deceive users into revealing sensitive personal information such as login credentials, credit card numbers, or other private details. The other options refer to different attack types. Option A cross-site scripting injects malicious script into web applications. Option B denial of service disrupts access to a service by overwhelming it with traffic. And option C Trojans is a malware disguised as legitimate software to perform malicious actions. Question number 176, which of these is not a characteristic of the cloud? Option A zero customer responsibility, option B broad network access, option C measured service, and option D rapid elasticity. So the last three, these are all basically features and characteristics of the cloud, while the zero customer responsibility, this is not the characteristic of a cloud, because cloud is basically a shared responsibility model. Both the cloud provider and the customer has their own responsibilities. So cloud services operate under a shared responsibility model, meaning customers and cloud providers share security and operational responsibilities. Customers are responsible for securing their data, managing configurations, and using services appropriately. The other options are key characteristics of the cloud as defined by the NIST cloud computing model. So broad network access, available over the network, accessible from various devices. Measured service, resource usage is monitored and billed based on consumption. And rapid elasticity, resources can scale up or down quickly to meet demand. Question number 177, which of these is a common mistake made when implementing record retention policies? Option A, not categorizing the type of information to be retained. Option B, not labeling the type of information to be retained. Option C, applying the longest retention periods to the information. And option D, applying shorter retention periods to the information. And the correct option is option C, applying the longest retention periods to the information. So applying the longest retention periods indiscriminately to all information can lead to unnecessary storage costs, inefficiency, and increased legal or compliance risk. Effective information retention policies should categorize and label information appropriately and apply retention periods based on regulatory requirements, business needs, and information sensitivity. Question number 178. Which type of security control does not include CCTV cameras? So CCTV camera is basically a detective, or you can also say a deterrent security control. So which of these is not a CCTV camera? Option A, corrective. Option B, deterrent. Option C, preventive. And option D, detective. So CCTV actually help in detection. They can also be a deterrent because an potential intruder seeing the CCTV inside the building will be deterred from entering the building. They can also prevent a potential intruder from entering the facility based on that deterrent, but they cannot do something as the correction. So the correct option is basically the corrective. CCTV cameras are typically associated with deterrent, preventive, and detective control. Deterrent means they discourage malicious activity by their presence. Preventive, they help prevent incidents by monitoring areas in real time. And detective is they record events for later analysis to identify incidents. However, CCTV cameras are not corrective control as they do not fix or mitigate the effect of a security breach after it has occurred. Corrective controls such as patches or backups are designed to restore systems or rectify vulnerabilities. Question number 179. A security consultant hired to design the security policies for the PHI within an organization will be primarily handling option A, personal health information, option B, public health information, option C, procedural health information, and option D, protected health information. The correct option is option D, protected health information. So protected health information, that is PHI, refers to any information related to an individual's health status, medical care, or payment for the health care that can be linked to a specific person. It is a key focus in compliance with regulations like HIPAA, which requires organizations to establish and ensure security policies to protect PHI from unauthorized access, use, or disclosure. Question number 180. Which of these cloud deployment models is a combination of public and private cloud storage? Option A, community. Option B, private. Option C, hybrid. And option D, public. And the correct option is option C, hybrid. So hybrid cloud basically combines elements of both public and private cloud storage. It allows organizations to store sensitive data in the private cloud while leveraging the scalability and cost effectiveness of the public cloud for less critical workloads. This approach provides flexibility, scalability, and enhanced data management options compared to using only public or private cloud. The other options refer to distinct cloud models. Community cloud is shared by organizations with common interest. Private cloud is exclusively used by one organization, and public cloud is hosted by third-party providers and accessible over the internet for everyone. Question number 181. What is the primary goal of a change management policy? So we will go straight to the correct options. You can pause the video and read the options. I will highlight the correct option, and that is option D. So the change management policy goal is to guarantee that system changes are performed without negatively affecting business operations. The primary goal of a change management policy is to ensure that changes to system, processes, or infrastructure are made in a controlled and systematic manner. This policy aims to minimize disruptions and risks, ensuring that changes do not negatively impact business operations, security, or service delivery. The other options focus on aspects of IT management but are not the core purpose of a change management policy. Question number 182. Which of these is not a feature of a SIEM, that is Security Information and Event Management? And the options are option A, log auditing, option B, log encryption, option C, log consolidation, and option D, log retention. So the SIEM is basically used for log consolidation. It can also be used for log retention. It is actually used for log auditing, but it is not used for log encryption. So while SIEM systems provide functionalities like log auditing, log consolidation, and log retention, log encryption is typically handled by other security mechanism or tool. Log auditing basically allows the review and analysis of logs for security events. Log consolidation collects logs from various sources into a centralized location for easier analysis. Log retention ensures that logs are stored for a predefined period, which is important for compliance and incident investigation. And log retention is more focused on securing the logs themselves, which is a separate function handled by encryption tools rather than the core features of SIEM. Question number 183. Which of these technologies is the least effective means of preventing shared accounts? Option A, requiring a one-time password via an application. Option B, requiring one-time passwords via token. Option C, password complexity requirement. And option D, requiring biometric authentication. And the correct option is option C, password complexity requirements. So password complexity requirements can make password harder to guess, but they do not specifically prevent shared accounts. Shared accounts can still exist with complex passwords, as the issue is more about the number of people using the same credential rather than the strength of those credentials. The other options provide stronger methods to prevent shared accounts. Option A, one-time password via an application, and option B, one-time password via a token, are both strong measures that ensure authentication is unique to each user, preventing shared accounts. Option D, biometric authentication, ensures that only the authorized individuals can access an account, effectively preventing shared access. Question number 184. When analyzing risks, which of these activities is required? Option A, accepting all evaluated risks. Option B, identifying risk associated with loss of confidentiality. Option C, determining the likelihood of occurrence of a set of risks. And option D, selecting the appropriate controls. And the correct option is, so the correct option is basically the option C, determining the likelihood of occurrence of set of risk. So when analyzing risk, determining the likelihood of occurrence is a crucial step. This activity helps assess the probability that a specific risk will materialize, which is necessary for prioritizing risk and deciding on mitigation strategies. The other options are part of the overall risk management process but are not directly tied to the analysis phase, such as option A, accepting all evaluated risk is a decision made after risk analysis, not part of the analysis itself. Option B, identifying risk is the first step in risk management, typically part of risk assessment rather than analysis. And option D, selecting appropriate control is part of the risk mitigation phase that follows risk analysis. Question number 185. Which of these exercises goes through a sample of an incident step by step, validating that what each person will do? Option A, a simulation exercise. Option B, a walkthrough exercise. Option C, a tabletop exercise. And option D, a checklist exercise. And the correct option is option B, a walkthrough exercise. So a walkthrough exercise involves going through a sample step incident step by step, allowing each participant to validate what they will do at each stage. This exercise helps clarify roles and responsibility in the event of an incident. The other options are different types of exercises, such as simulation exercise typically involves a more dynamic, realistic scenario where participants respond in real time, often under more pressure. A tabletop exercise is a discussion-based exercise where participants talk through their responses to a scenario, typically at a high level. And a checklist exercise involves verifying tasks against a checklist but does not typically involve detailed step-by-step validation like a walkthrough exercise. Question number 186. Which of these types of documents is usually the least formal? Option A, standards. Option B, guidelines. Option C, policies. And option D, regulations. So if we look at each of these documents, so the regulations, you can say that these are the most formal. Policies, they are also formals after regulations, and on third number, the standards are also somewhat formal. And the guidelines are basically optionals and recommendations. So they are basically the least formal. So the correct option is option B. So guidelines are usually the least formal of the listed documents. They provide recommendations or best practices but are not mandatory and offer flexibility in how they are followed. The other options are generally more formal. Option A, standards define specific requirements and are often mandatory. Policies outline the rules and expectations for an organization and typically have a formal structure. And regulations are legal or regulatory requirements that must be followed, making them the most formal. Question number 187. A backup that captures the changes made since the last full backup is an example of. So there are multiple type of backups. So what type of backups is what type of backup is that in which the changes since the last full backups are captured? And the options are sorry guys, so these options are from the previous question. So let me write it myself. So for example, we can say that incremental, the options may be incremental, option B may be differential. Sorry for this mistake, but I will make it up to you. Differential, and option C we can write as, suppose, full backup. And option D, these are all that I have on top of my mind. Let's suppose none of the above. So the correct option here is basically differential. So differential backup is that backup which captures, let's suppose you take the full backup over here. This is, let's suppose, the full backup. And then there are changes that are taking place in this time frame. And then again, you take here a backup covering all these changes. So this backup is then known as the differential. Is the differential of this full backup and this point. So what do you need when you want to restore something? You will need this full backup and this differential backup, because this full backup covers everything beyond this point, and differential backup covers from full backup up to this point. So when you restore services using this differential and full backup, you will restore everything. So again, this explanation and the options are from the previous question, but I hope the concept is clear. Question number 188. So again, this is the same question. Here we have captured the correct options. So differential, incremental, a backup snapshot, and full backup. So again, the correct option is differential backup, and the explanation is that a differential backup captures all changes made since the last full backup. It does not reset the archive bit. So each subsequent differential backup will include all changes since the last full backup. In comparison, incremental backup captures only changes made since the most recent backup, either full or incremental. A backup snapshot is a point-in-time image of the data or system, not a typical backup type, and full backup captures all data in its entirety regardless of the changes. Question number 189. A high-level executive of an organization receives a malicious email that tries to trick him. Which attack is the perpetrator using? And the options are option A, DDoS, distributed denial of service, option B, whaling, option C, phishing, and option D, spear phishing. So remember, when the attacker wants to trick the user through malicious email, this type of attack is generally known as phishing. But when the target is the high level executive, then this is special type of phishing known as whaling. And when there are certain users, mean the phishing attack is not general but is targeting specific users, not the high level executive, then this is known as spear phishing. So here the correct option is whaling, since the target is high level executives such as CEO, or you can say CFO. So when the target is these high level executive, this is known as whaling. So whaling is a type of social engineering attack specifically targeting high-level executives or other important individuals within an organization. The goal is to steal sensitive information or gain unauthorized access, often by using highly personalized and convincing messages. The other options are distributed denial of service, involves overwhelming a system with traffic to make it unavailable, not an email-based attack. Phishing is a broader term for deceptive emails or messages aiming to trick users into providing personal or confidential information, but it is not specifically targeted at high-level individuals. And spear phishing is more targeted than phishing, but it is typically aimed at individuals rather than executives, often involving social engineering to steal credentials or gain unauthorized access. Question number 190. What does redundancy mean in the context of cyber security? So what does we mean by the redundancy in cyber security? Options are option A, designing systems with robust components so that the organization has more attack resilience. Option B, conceiving system with only the most necessary components so that the organization has just the necessary risks. Option C, conceiving systems with less attack surface so that the attacker has less chance of success. And option D, conceiving systems with duplicate components so that if a failure occurs, there will be a backup. So redundancy in a nutshell means that you have multiple components so that if one component fails, you have a backup component and the services are not disrupted. That is redundancy in a nutshell. And looking at the option, the correct option is option D, conceiving system with duplicate components so that if a failure occurs, there will be a backup component or backup systems. So the explanation is that in the context of cybersecurity, redundancy refers to designing systems with backup components such as servers, power supplies, or network paths to ensure that if one part fails, another can take over, thus maintaining system availability and preventing downtime. This helps improve resilience against failures and attacks. Question number 191. Which type of attack primarily aims to consume all the available resources, thereby making an organization's service inaccessible to its intended users. And the options are option A, Trojans, option B, cross-site scripting, option C, denial of service, and option D, phishing. And the correct option is option C, denial of service. So, as we have already studied in multiple questions, denial of service attack primarily aims to consume all available resources such as bandwidth, memory, or processing power, making a system or network service unavailable to its intended users. This can result in the service being inaccessible, which is the core goal of such an attack. Question number 192. Which one of these tools is most likely to detect an XSS vulnerability, that is cross-site scripting vulnerability? Option A, network vulnerability scanner. Option B, static application test. Option C, intrusion detection system. And option D, web application vulnerability scanner. And the correct option is option D, web application vulnerability scanner. So a web application vulnerability scanner is specifically designed to detect vulnerabilities in web application, including cross-site scripting. These scanners check for issues like script injection, session management flaws, and other security weaknesses in the web-based application. Question number 193. Which kind of physical access control is less effective at preventing unauthorized individual access to a data center? So we are talking about physical access control and preventing the access of individuals. And the options are option A, turnstiles, option B, barriers, option C, fences, and option D, bollards. So we are talking about which is the least effective. So if you look at the option, bollards are basically used for vehicles. These are pillar-like structures, and they are placed narrow enough so that vehicle cannot pass through, but individuals can easily pass through. So these bollards are basically least effective for individual access control to a facility or a data center. So the correct option is bollards. Of course, you can use fences, barriers, and turnstile for individuals access control. So bollards are short vertical posts that block vehicles from accessing a data center. They are, however, ineffective at preventing access to individuals. Fences can be placed around the perimeter of the data center so as to block unauthorized access and deter potential intruders. Barriers such as gates, walls, or barricades can be used to block access to the data center. Finally, turnstile can be used to control access to a data center, namely by allowing entry only to authorized individuals. Question number 194. Which of these is not a type of malware? So, the options are option A, Trojan, option B, worm, option C, spoofing, and option D, rootkit. So, if we look at the option, the spoofing is an odd option for a malware. Spoofing is basically a type of attack where an individual or a system impersonates as another individual or system. So, this is not a worm but a specific or malware but a specific type of attack. Trojans, worms, and rootkit are all types of malware. So spoofing is not a type of malware. Spoofing is not a type of malware. It refers to a deceptive technique where an attacker impersonates another system, user, or device to gain unauthorized access or mislead the target. Spoofing can be used as part of a broader attack, but it is not categorized as a malware itself. Question number 195. Which security principle states that a user should only have the necessary permissions to execute tasks? Options are option A, privileged accounts, option B, separation of duties, option C, least privilege, and option D, defense in depth. And the correct option is, of course, the least privilege. As the name indicates, the user should have the minimum or least privilege to execute their tasks so that inadvertently the user does not perform something harmful or not according to their permissions but above their privileges. So the least privilege principle states that users should only have the minimum permissions necessary to perform their task. This reduces the risk of accidental or intentional misuse of access rights and limits the impact of potential security breaches. Question number 196. What is the primary goal of implementing security policies in an organization? Options are option A, to ensure legal compliance. Option B, to create a framework for security controls and procedures. Option C, to ensure strong passwords. And option D, to train employees in cyber security. And the correct option is option B, to create a framework for security controls and procedures. So the primary goal of implementing security policies is to create a framework for the organization's security controls and procedures. These policies help define how security should be managed, what practices are required, and the roles and responsibility of employees in maintaining security. Question number 197. Which of the following is an example of a physical security control? And the options are option A, firewall, option B, encryption, option C, security guard, and option D, antivirus software. So if we look at these options, the firewall, encryption, and antivirus all are technical or logical security control, while the security guard can be used for physical access control to control the access to a facility or a data center. So the correct option is security guard. So security guards are physical security control as they provide a direct human presence to protect physical access to facilities, assets, or sensitive areas. The other options are example of logical or technical security control. Firewalls control network traffic and protect against unauthorized access to a network, so a logical control. Encryption protects data by converting it into an unreadable format, a logical security control. And antivirus software detects and removes malware from system, which is a logical control. Question number 198. Which phase of the disaster recovery plan involves the restoration of normal operations? Option A, response, option B, recovery, option C, mitigation, and option D, business impact analysis. And the correct option is option B, recovery. So the recovery phase of the disaster recovery plan involves the restoration of normal operations after a disaster. During this phase, system, data, and services are brought back online and business activities resume. The other phases are option A, response, involves immediate actions to address the disasters such as containment and damage assessments. Option B, mitigation, focuses on actions taken before a disaster to reduce the likelihood or impact of potential events. And option D, business impact analysis, is part of the planning phase where an organization identifies critical business functions and the impact of disruptions to those functions. Question number 199. Which of the following is a primary component of an incident response plan? Option A, risk assessment. Option B, communication procedures. Option C, security policy development. And option D, physical security measures. And the correct option is option B, communication procedures. The communication procedures are a primary component of an incident response plan. These procedures ensure that clear, effective communication is maintained during an incident, both within the organization and with external parties, such as law enforcement, vendor, or the public if necessary. This helps in coordinating responses and managing the incident effectively. Question number 200. Which of the following is a key activity in security operations to maintain the integrity of systems? Option A, implementing access control. Option B, performing regular backups. Option C, conducting security audits, and option D, monitoring network traffic. And the correct option is conducting security audits. So conducting security audits is a key activity in security operations to maintain the integrity of system. Audit helps identify vulnerabilities, ensure compliance with security policies, and verify that systems are functioning as intended without being tampered with. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and hit like and subscribe to my channel. I will upload a video of the CC certification, other videos of the same certification, as well as videos for other certifications such as CompTIA Security Plus, Network Plus, CISP, CCSP, etc. So subscribe and hit like so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you and see you soon in the next video.